Hello everybody. In this video, we are going to discuss the second function of management, that is organizing. Organizing is defined as identification and classification of required activities, grouping of activities, and then assigning each group to a manager with authority, and finally providing for horizontal and vertical coordination. Let us understand this with the help of an example. Suppose I would like to start a small factory and I have identified the activities that are likely to be performed in this manufacturing unit. I will have to purchase raw materials, then I will have to produce these finished goods, then I have to sell them in the market. My machinery will require maintenance, so I will have a maintenance and utilities function. Then there is going to be HRM, that is man management, and finance, which I am calling it fund management. Then I will have a transportation section to take my finished goods to the market. Finished goods also have to undergo a check, so I will have a quality control section. So these are some of the activities that I am visualizing. Now I will have to group them. Because it is a new factory, and it is a small organization, therefore I am combining them into groups as per my convenience. So what I am doing is that I am telling that let me keep purchase, sales and transportation together as one group. Then production, maintenance, utilities and quality control as a second group. And finally HRM and finance as the third group. So what I have effectively created is now 3 departments. Now these 3 departments must be put into a structure, which we call it the organizational structure. So I have a general manager who is going to head this company. There's a secretary who reports only to the general manager. Then I have put in the 3 departments. They are going to be headed by deputy general managers. And can you see under department 1, I have put in purchase, sales and transport. Under department 2, I have put it production, quality control and maintenance. And department 3, I have put HRM and finance out here. And you can give names to these departments as you wish. And in each department, there are some number of other employees also out here. Of course, I have not put in the workers who are going to work in the factory. So this is a representation of the officer level people in the company. So what we have basically done in this process is that first we established enterprise objectives, and then also we formulated supporting objectives and policies and plans. Now the enterprise objectives and their supporting policies and plans, you have already done it in the planning stage. So that part is taken care of. What we started here is that based on these enterprise objectives, we have identified and classified activities and we have also grouped them. And we delegated to head of each group and we tied the group together through authority and information relationship. So this diagram that I just showed you, if you can see here, the relationship is very evident that each of these DGMs will have to report to the general manager. So that is an authority relationship. Purchase, sales and transport will report to DGM of department 1. Production, quality control and maintenance will report to DGM of department 2. HRM and finance will report to the DGM of department 3. From this diagram, you know that orders will flow from top to bottom, that is from general manager to the DGMs to the other units, and information will flow from bottom to up. So whatever is happening in purchase, sales and transport will go to the DGM of department 1, and who in turn will share it with the general manager. Similarly, HRM and finance will share information with DGM of department 3, who in turn will forward it to the general manager. So what we have done is we have tied the groups together through authority and information relationship. When we talk of organizing and organizations, please understand that there are two concepts: formal and informal organization. What we have seen so far and discussed so far is the formal organization. So the formal organization has an intentional structure, but it is not rigid. There is room for discretion. There are specific goals to be achieved with minimum cost and unsought consequences. So although we created this organizational structure, it is not fixed for all time to come. As the company is going to grow, you will find that this department 1 will now bifurcate into maybe 3 separate departments. Same will happen with this existing department 2 and 3. So therefore it is not rigid. It has been set up with a purpose. There is a goal to be achieved, and that is why we need the organization structure. Then we have what is known as informal organization. So this is a network of personal and social relationships arising out of the need to associate. Keep in mind that it is a network of personal and social relationship. It has nothing to do with your position in the hierarchy. And this network arises out of the need to associate. Let me give you an example. In this organization structure, that the formal one that we have, we can have informal structures, informal groups. They are referred to as the grapevine also. Can you see the red stars out there? So these people where you can see the red stars, they are one group. Maybe they have something in common. Maybe, these 4 of them like to play table tennis. So in the evenings, they will do that. So therefore, they have their own group. Similarly, you can see the white stars. So these white stars are also another group. And they also have some reason for being together. Maybe they like to go to the movies together. Or maybe they travel together, pool car kind of. So there is a need to associate. Therefore, within the formal structure, you can have an informal organization also. One more thing to be noticed out here is that this informal group does not depend on the hierarchy. You can see that these are people from different levels in the hierarchy, and they have formed their group. Now let's come to organizational roles. Organizational roles have to be meaningful, and they will be meaningful only if there is verifiable objectives, clear idea of major duties and responsibilities, understood area of discretion and authority, and all types of support. Verifiable objectives mean that it is measurable, it is quantifiable. So if you and I, we are in a particular position in the hierarchy, we must have verifiable objectives. So let's have a look at the diagram again. For example, Department 1. The objective of Department 1 Verifiable objectives would be to ensure that purchase is done in time and at the least cost. Sales happen as per the target that is set. Transportation should be effective so that your finished goods reach the market in time. So therefore, this is the verifiable objective of the person heading Department 1, that is the DGM out there. And this DGM must know what are his or her major duties and responsibilities, and also understand what is the jurisdiction, what is the authority that this manager has, how much of discretionary power does the manager have. And of course, if this person has to perform well, will require support. He will require support from the subordinates as well as from the general manager, his boss. Next, we come to another term which is called span of management. So the span of management is the number of people who you are supervising. And it is believed that there is a limit to the number of subordinates a manager can supervise, and this number depends on certain underlying factors. So in the diagram that we had just created, we have seen that the general manager has 3 DGMs who report to him. So which means that his span of management is 3. Now the span of management depends on certain factors. Let us understand them. But before that, we need to understand what is a narrow span and what is a wide span. When we say narrow span, it means that you have few subordinates, maybe 2, 3, 4. And when you have few subordinates, you can provide close supervision. You can maintain close control also. And communication is faster. Obviously, it is easy to talk to 2 or 3 people as compared to 10 or 15 people. But when you have a narrow span, your organization structure will have many levels. And therefore, as many levels, higher is going to be the cost out there. And higher involvement also from the part of the general manager. And because you have many levels, it complicates planning and communication. And there is a huge gap between the top level and the bottom level. In a wide span, you will have a large number of subordinates, maybe 10, maybe 15. And in order to manage well, you need to have clear policies. So when policies are clear cut, it is easier to manage this group because they also know what is expected from them, and you also have the standards against which to control them and get them to work. It requires careful selection of subordinates. So if your subordinates are of the homogeneous category, I mean they have the same kind of education, same kind of an experience, they have the same kind of a training, they have same kind of understanding, then it is easier to manage. Otherwise it gets difficult. But even then, the superior, the boss tends to get overloaded, because you have 15 to 20 people to control, and sometimes you experience loss of control. You feel that things are going out of your hand. Therefore, it needs high quality managers. So we had said earlier that the number of subordinates that you have under you, whether you have a narrow span or a wide span, it depends on certain factors. So let's understand these factors one by one. The first is training of subordinates. If your subordinates are well trained, then it is easy to have a wide span of management. But if they are not trained, or maybe the work that they are handling is new for them or new for you also, then it is preferable to have a narrow span. Second is clarity of delegation. If it is a wide span, it is obvious that you will have to delegate somewhere or the other. So if you can delegate properly, if your subordinate understands this delegation properly, then it is easy to have a wide span. But again, like I said, that if the job is a new job and you yourself as the boss, you really do not know how it's going to work out. So therefore, you may not be very willing to delegate, or you will not even know how to delegate. So if clarity of delegation is not there, then go for a narrow span. Otherwise, if clarity of delegation is there, then go for a wide span. Similarly, clarity of plans. If the plans are well documented and each one of us, we know exactly what the plan is and how we have to implement it, then we can go for a wide span. But if the plan is a little fuzzy and it is just developing and clarity has not yet come, then maybe you should stick to a narrow span. Next is use of objective standard. So when we use the word objective, it means that it is measurable, it is quantifiable. When you have an objective standard, as a boss, you know how to measure your performance, the performance of your subordinate. Similarly, the subordinate also knows that how his performance is going to be measured. And therefore, the subordinate will work accordingly. So if you have an objective standard, then you can have a wide span. In some cases, objective standard is not possible, especially as you go higher up in the hierarchy. There are things that you talk of where it is not really possible to have an objective standard. Or in some type of jobs, it is not possible to have objective standard. For example, how will you measure the quality of service of a doctor or a nurse, or for that even a teacher? Then we have rate of change. This is the rate of change in the environment, the economy. If your environment is changing very fast, government policies are changing, demand and supply is changing, people's needs are changing, then you have to respond very fast. So therefore, you will work better with a narrow span because it is faster to communicate. But if the rate of change is very slow, then you can continue with a wide span. Communication techniques. If you have good communication techniques, that is a system in place, then you can manage a wide span. Otherwise, you will have to stick to a narrow span. Amount of personal contact needed also determines the span of management. Like I have mentioned earlier, that if it is a new job and your subordinate will require a lot of attention, then you will obviously have a narrow span. But if it is a routine job and your subordinate can do it very well, does not require much of supervision from the boss, then you can have a wide span. And the last is variation by organizational level. You must have seen it for yourself that at the bottom of the hierarchy, you have a wide span of management. But as you grow up in the hierarchy, as you move upwards, you will find that the span decreases. So that is variation by organizational level. So this is end of part 1 of organizing, and we will continue with this in the next video. Thank you very much for tuning in.